Ladies and gentlemen, is there a dream you wish you could fulfill, or a regret that happened way back when, and it just didn't go the way that you thought it would? Let us take you on a trip to a small little town in a dreary little farming community in Iowa for our next film, where you'll ask, is this heaven? No, this is a podcast, and this is To the Table. I'm Matt Dewis. With me, as always, Randy Kirk.
Hey, podcasters.
And Steve Frazier.
How's it going over there?
So, our...
That was dreamy, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
The fucking field of it.
So, our movie this episode is Field of Dreams, and Randy Kirk has never seen this movie. Why is that?
All I knew was that it was a movie about building a field, discovering history, and as I told you before, we go back to the For Love of the Game episode, I didn't think that it had a whole lot to do with baseball, that it was a guy that, was discovering some history with baseball, and so it wasn't as interesting to me, so didn't really care then. At the time that the movie came out, I was 3 years old, so knew about the movie, of course. By the time I was kind of old enough to rent it on my own and watch it, just didn't really care.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. Steve Frazier, your preconceived notion?
My preconceived notion was that I remember it being heralded as like an all-time classic.
Yeah.
It came out in 1989, the greatest year of all years, and I knew that it was about a guy who heard voices and yada, yada, yada. Here, he builds a baseball field and shit happens. And fun fact, I realized that I've actually only seen this about a half of time, that it got to be about 30 minutes into the movie, and I went, I'm pretty sure I shut this off as a kid. And I don't think I've seen it all the way through.
Right.
And I guarantee you that that's the case, because after a certain point I was like, yeah, I've not seen this. So I know I saw the beginning, and it came out in 89, which means I probably saw it when 91, 92, and I don't know if it was on TV. I don't know if we rented it. I don't know. But I'm like, even at that point, I'm a baseball fan.
I feel like it was on TBS all the time.
All the time.
Field of Dreams, 1989, as heralded as a quintessential, maybe top 5 baseball films.
Right.
In most people, almost number 1.
Well, Bull Durham is another one.
Right.
Like, Bull Durham and this one are like 1 and 2.
Once again, we're Kevin Costner. And so, of course, this has a life on Superstation, AMC, or whatever. It's that same sort of vein as movies that we know and love in the past. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, Superstation is known for their love of putting baseball games on Braves TV,
Right, right,
and
which is how I became a Braves fan.
So, of course they're going to play the greatest baseball movie of all time any chance they fucking get. And so that's
right in
what they
between, Mayberry and Wizard of Oz.
Right. And so, of course you only get bits and bobs because that's what this movie is. You walk into it at 2 o'clock on a Thursday or 3 o'clock on a Sunday, and there it is, because there's not a baseball game on TBS. There's Field of Dreams instead. So 1989.
The greatest year ever.
Fun fact with Uncle Dew, Kevin Costner was a little leery about putting this movie out.
Yeah.
He just got off of Bull Durham, and as you may see in a lot of the scenes, there's a lot of wardrobe that matches up from what he wore. Well, you haven't, Randy.
I haven't.
But what he wore in Bull Durham and what he wears.
I thought Bull Durham was like early 80s.
I think it's 86.
See, I thought it was earlier than that. I'm going to look it up.
Yep. Let's just crack into our non-sponsor sponsor, Ham's Beer, real quick.
Well.
Beer refreshing. All right. You're talking about baseball, you got to have a beer.
Well, Kiss My Grits. Bull Durham came out in 1988.
Oh, shit. I was a
It
year
was
off.
literally 1 movie removed.
No kidding.
Costner is a regular guest on the Dan Patrick Show that I watch. And he has talked about how he was leery, like he read the script.
Yeah.
And thought that it was a little hokey. And he wasn't sure, like, if this could make or break. Like, if I do this, it might be the end. You know,
Right.
like, it might be awful.
And so this isn't what Costner has put out in the last 3 films that he's put out. Bull Durham was a little bit more raunchy. It was a hard R.
Great movie.
A little bit more comedy. He was a leading. Well, he's a leading man in this, but he was the love interest in that. Prior to that, we get The Untouchables.
Yeah.
Hard edge action film. You know, him just going for it. Before that, it was Silverado with Kevin Kline.
Silverado is so good.
It's Silverado's in my tops of
Yeah.
of Western films, and so this is a different sort of Kevin Costner that we get. We get dad Kevin Costner. We get a soft Kevin Costner. We get Kevin Costner of the '60s. You know, just trying to. He's an everyman. He's trying to make ends meet, and he hears a voice out in a field in Iowa, and he's, you know, he was never supposed to be a farmer, but his wife talked him into it.
I think he's wearing, like, Berkeley shirts and that as well, right?
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
that's where he...
Technically wise, because that's how we go with to the table. Technically, I don't have any pacing issues with this film.
No?
Ooh, maybe a little
Ooh,
bit.
maybe?
Maybe a little bit.
I do.
Hit me with them.
Well, I mean, I guess if we're talking pacing, I've got a note ahead of this one. So I was going to talk about the voices.
Yep.
I've got 2 pacing issues, 2 notes here. All right. So the hearing the voices. Well, not just for starters, I thought it was odd. Just thought it was weird. I understand voice of God, whatever. But I thought it kind of came too early.
Okay.
And again, it kind of started with the flashbacks, if you will. Like, this is what I did. This led me up here. Kind of
Right.
during the credits. We talked about that
Well,
with For Love of the Game.
And this one has a similar opening montage.
Yeah, sure.
Where they literally barfed out the entire backstory.
Yep.
In like 2 minutes, just so that you're not confused when we start the movie, like, already in the middle.
Right. I'm a city boy, has a farm in Iowa. Here we go. Yeah.
Right.
And then he hears voices. Number 1, I thought it was odd. Number 2, I kind of thought it was a little bit too early pacing-wise. Like, I thought that we could have used just a tad more build-up. Like, I really didn't know who the fuck he was.
Right.
And it's like, why do I give a shit about this guy?
I would completely agree with that.
I don't care about that he's hearing voices. I don't care that he's a farmer.
So you want him struggling a little bit more with his everyday farming
Right.
life,
Yeah, I
and
mean, it was all the...
then the stress is maybe something that he hears the voices of.
Right. We may talk about their financial struggles here in a little bit, because that was kind of thrown in. It was kind of...
Very weird, awful. It was
weird.
awful.
So that was one. And then I thought that he discovered the what and the who for, if you build it, he will come. I thought that was kind of odd. I thought he figured it out almost immediately. And he had that vision of the ballpark. He didn't have a vision any other time. Spoiler. He didn't have a vision any other time, but he saw the ballpark. That's like, if you build it, I have to build a ballpark.
Well, he saw
on the field.
Moonlight Graham at Fenway.
Oh, I guess
on the
so.
board.
All right. You poked a hole there. Yeah,
Sorry.
But yeah,
Yeah,
me,
but I don't think he saw that until later. I don't think that was at the beginning.
No,
To
that
Randy's
was-
point,
yeah.
it was literally just a vision of a field. Like, half of the corn was gone and there was a baseball.
Yeah, it felt quick. It was like, if you build it, he will come. Here it is. This is what you got to build. And it was
so
like,
it's funny. You just did the Mandela thing.
Yeah.
Where you said, if you build it, they will come.
Or whatever it is,
Which
yeah.
is not the quote, which
It's
is what
he will
everybody
come.
says. It's he will come.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this time. Now, granted, it's probably been since 1991 since I've seen this, but I've been Mandela to think that it was they will come.
Yeah.
As in, like, the fans or
Because
whatever.
Sure.
you remember, and we'll talk about this
The
later.
ending.
The ending.
But I don't remember the ending because I didn't finish.
Right.
So, but I remember the quote, but it's he will come. And I was like, wait, he will come? Did they mean the dad? Because I think at the ending had been spoiled to me that the dad was going to...
This is a venerable movie, and so MLB will use whatever they possibly can.
See, and
so that's why the Mandela happens, is because they use that ending.
And
constantly.
34 years later, I'm glad that was never spoiled for me.
Yeah.
Like
The dad?
The dad.
Oh,
I knew that it involved the dad somehow, but not in that way, I guess.
Oh, yeah,
I
knew that.
It wasn't spoiled for me.
By the way, the voice, I wrote it down. It says, if you build it, he will come 6 times in the first 9 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah.
And this is probably why I turned it off as a kid, because I was like, what the fuck?
Right.
We're not really religious people, and so, great.
We're different. I wouldn't go so far as to say not really. That's being generous.
Yeah, the religion just doesn't hit around
Right.
here. And
Not at this table. There's no Jesus at this table.
And so this whole faith, this whole vision thing, just seems silly and ridiculous in our whole zeitgeist, as it were. And so for this sort of situation, we're like, this guy's absolutely fucking nuts, just like the townspeople of this little town in Iowa.
And I thought that was kind of fun that everybody thought, oh, this guy's crazy. Even the lady at the town hall thing, their meeting, where she's like, oh, your husband's crazy. He doesn't
Yeah.
voice it. I thought that was kind of fun. That they
Wasn't
baked it
she
in.
the shithead in Footloose as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, she was.
She's a very famous character actor, and I
Right.
can't remember her name.
Yeah,
She is.
but she always plays a shithead. Yeah.
So there's the scene where he's going to buy the feed or whatever.
Right.
And all the townspeople, like, it's great, because it's like they're all old men, right? They're all old farmer guys.
Right.
And here's a scene where they could have really played up the struggle of being a novice farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of blew it. And, I don't know, because it was like, it went right to him being crazy old man, feed store.
They
of
didn't
crazy.
stew on it long
Right,
enough.
right.
Yeah.
And what the fuck was he buying a bag of seed for? Like, the corn is already
Right.
up to his goddamn neck. What's he
That's
buying
why
seed?
that's why they went broke.
He got buying seed. I was like, I literally gave pause. I was like, what are you buying? You're buying seed? Why?
But I liked, chalk it up to Kevin Costner being a good actor. I thought it was fun that the older gentleman, said that, oh, he's hearing voices. And Costner, took offense. And he's like, hearing voices?
No,
not me.
no,
what are you
no,
talking
no,
about?
what are you talking
I just
about?
heard some people hear
somebody
voices.
say.
Sometimes that's whatever.
I thought that was funny because if it were guys around his same age,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have taken it the same way.
No.
But these were older guys
Yep.
that were mentors, if you will, that could have been,
Sure.
like you said, looking at him like he was the new farmer on the block.
The pacing, again, I have written down that the montage of him building the field happens at 15 minutes into the movie.
So, oddly enough, it's right here. I have 16 minutes in, he's already got the field built.
Yes. So
We gotta
what-
get going, though. We gotta build the field,
But-
and
so-
then we keep going.
Yeah, but what's the story?
I
Like,
looked over, so Tiff started watching this movie with me, but she went upstairs halfway in. And so I looked over to her at 16 minutes in and I said, he built it, now they're going to come, movie's over. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I was so confused, and I was like, no wonder I stopped watching this.
Yep.
So Ray Liotta does come.
Like, they've given us so much story between the montage and then the quick vision and then the building of the field. Like, now, we'll probably get into the whole idea of the financials in a little bit. He only cuts down, like, a small...
Fourth.
a
Like, not
small-
even a fourth.
A
It's
very
maybe
small
an eighth
portion,
of it.
right.
And, yeah.
And everybody blows a goddamn cow over the fact that he's like ruined his entire field. Like, he didn't. I don't know. It seemed weird.
right, he's got enough corn for these baseball ghosts to, walk through, and yeah, it was weird.
It was very weird. It was
so-
super weird.
Also, we were talking Ray Liotta. I know we haven't really gotten into acting yet. So,
No,
I don't
we
know,
can
do you guys
move
have
into
anything
that.
pre-acting?
Well, I guess any other technical issues that you had with this?
That fucking score, the dun dun dun. It's one of those that's up there with John Williams. Like, they use it in everything.
oh, you
now.
like it?
I'm okay. It's a generic thing, but now it's what you think of when it comes to Field of Dreams.
I didn't really take note of the music, but now that you mention it, I guess it was okay.
It was just a score. They don't really use music.
Like, there's not a soundtrack.
Right.
Right, and this was James Horner. I mean, he's a,
Right.
he's a pro.
Right. He's 10 years removed from winning the Oscar for Titanic.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was
Not
good.
removed from. He's 10 years prior
Out.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, before.
So,
But
rolling
yeah.
into
Acting.
Acting.
So I thought, Ray Liotta. It
He was
a bit,
he was flat.
It was a bit of an odd choice,
Right.
and also he didn't. Not that his character may not be older than Costner, but he was from an older generation,
Right.
And the generational gap was off for me.
Well, and this is just early Leota as well, and it's the both of them, like they're in their prime.
Well, Costner is at his peak of popularity at this
Right,
point.
right, and Leota's just almost getting there.
Right. His next movie, I believe, is Goodfellas.
Right.
And like, talk about the transformation.
But you're right, it is definitely a miscast. I think Shoeless Joe is definitely a little bit more gaunt.
Yeah, but I just mean him playing like, this is really strange. I'm not from this era. You know, it felt like, oh, I'm Ray Liotta. I'm just in a random field.
Yeah.
Give me a baseball. Like,
Right.
It didn't feel off. So I didn't like Ray Liotta for that reason.
The younger version of the Doctor was a much better.
Yeah, what's his name? Frank Whaley?
I think
Right,
so.
that's
yeah.
his name. Yeah, and I
The
like
kid.
him.
Like the behavior.
He also had a wild ride in the 80s. And
Into
then-
the early '90s with career opportunities.
right. Mm-hmm. He was
John
in the,
Hughes run. Yeah.
He was in that crazy one with what's her name from Labyrinth.
Yes, that was career opportunity.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Oh my God! How do I not know the name of that?
Pete Connolly.
Jennifer Connelly?
Jennifer Connelly.
You don't think House of Sand and Fog was peak Jennifer Connelly?
Oh, I'm acting wise, that's Pete Connolly.
Okay.
Talking about, she was.
I don't think of House in Sand and Fog when I think of Jennifer Connelly.
Are you serious?
No, seriously.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
You think of Beautiful Mind?
Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
I think Labyrinth.
Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem
Yeah,
for
I
a
mean,
Dream.
we really just went off the deep end.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
House of Sand and
It's
Fog is a
acting.
fucking great
It-
movie.
It is.
kind of gold before. The redheaded brother.
Uh huh.
I think his name is like Jeff something or other.
Oh,
Fun fact with I know him.
Wait, something or other. Is that Irish?
Yes.
Okay.
I know. Speaking of, I always see him from the 80s and 90s television, early 90s, 30 something.
yeah.
ABC television show
I remember it.
that he
Yeah.
was in. But I also I when I think of him, I think of he was in Trucks, Stephen King, the Stephen King serialized movie version of Maximum Overdrive.
Kidding. I never saw
And
it.
then
I didn't either.
I think he was in the television miniseries It as well.
Which character?
I think
I don't think he was one of the main ones.
I don't think
I
so
thought he
either.
was. No,
Pretty sure he was not. But I could be
Thinking about
right.
Harry Anderson?
no.
How could you forget? Well,
Harry Anderson's fantastic.
He is.
Love me some Night Court Harry Anderson.
Me too.
yeah, agreed.
Great theme song.
But like, so the fun fact. So Burt Lancaster, who plays Moonlight Graham,
Yeah.
in Burt Lancaster's final role, it's originally supposed to be Jimmy Stewart, but they didn't think that they could get Jimmy Stewart.
Damn it. It would have been great.
So they get Burt Lancaster, known trapeze artist.
Not known to me.
Me neither.
So they get him, and he didn't know that this guy from Adam, and so he thought he was just a AD on the show, and had him fetching water and food, and the guy, the brother, would just go and do it because it's Burt fucking Lancaster.
That's funny.
And so he was just like, oh, he's just some random helper, and then until he found out, he's like, I'm so sorry, and he's like, oh, no problem, Mr. Lancaster.
I like that.
I gotta find this guy's name now.
Also, just kind of a interesting fact, also fun, I guess. This was released 3 months prior to Uncle Buck, because Madigan and Gabby Hoffman were both,
Both in,
in
in
Uncle
both,
Buck.
yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that they were released so close together.
You know, it's funny that I just watched these recently, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I couldn't remember her name. I had to look up her name, but I was like, "That's the girl that's in Uncle Buck," and I'm like, "And Amy Madigan's also in Uncle Buck,"
Isn't it crazy?
And I was like, and that came out the same year. And Gabby Hoffman, I was like, I know she's in something now, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what it was. And
Timothy
then
Busfield.
Okay.
I totally mistaken that one.
and as it turns out, where I know her from is the Winning Time story of the Lakers.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Which I watch
Yeah.
on HBO Max because it's about basketball in the 80s and I fucking love all sports things.
She only just started acting again like 10 years ago or something of that
Well,
nature.
she looks basically the same, but as an adult,
Yeah.
which makes her not attractive. Yeah, so she has a role on the Winning Time HBO show about the Lakers.
Which I still have to
it's
watch.
fucking
It's on my list.
amazing.
John C. Reilly once again.
I know.
John
man.
C. Reilly is a 10 on that show. Anyway,
Timothy
he
Busfield
always-
was not an 8.
I didn't think so.
Yeah. I don't know why I associated him with it. I don't know why.
No, that's all right.
Okay. Keep going. Amy Madigan, yeah.
So she was delightful in
She
this.
she's always delightful.
She is.
She was very flip-floppy.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, she was like, hey, you have to do this. Absolutely. And he was like, I got to go to Fenway. And she's like, but we've got creditors and there's money and we have to pay that.
But
and he's like,
you also being married, I think you can relate to it.
Well,
Because
right.
I put myself in those shoes too, where you think, oh shit, well, this is my partner, my wife, my spouse.
You wanna support?
Like, right? You want to do this for them, but then at the same time, don't forget though, we have a house, we got a farm, we got a kid. So,
but then she was like, oh, you had a dream? So did I have a dream. Oh, go to Fenway. Like,
Right.
like it was so fucking
that's how.
out of
That's kind of how life works, I guess.
it's so fucking out of the ordinary, kind of weird
Out
to
of
me.
left field.
Uh-huh.
There's something about the fantasy of this movie that is weird, but also you're kind of okay with. Kind of.
Yeah.
Like to a point.
Well, there's a
I-
bit of nostalgia to it, right? And that's what this movie is all about: is nostalgia and dreams and righting wrongs and
I hated the voices.
Yeah.
I hated the voice. Or I guess it's just one voice.
Yeah.
but I
Right.
hated
But it's
the voice.
multiple clues.
uncredited and never released on who the voice was. Yeah,
I
But
also
you know-
fun fact. No,
Oh, you don't know.
no.
kind of a. It was not a great voice.
No.
It was a whisper. It was a hushed voice.
Right.
It's
But
ASMR in '89.
but I didn't love that part of it. I thought it would have been much cooler had he again called Field of Fucking Dreams if he had just had a dream,
Sure.
no voice,
Yeah.
and just said he woke up. Oh my god, I had this dream. I feel compelled that I have to do this. It would have been a lot better in my opinion.
I
No
would
voice.
agree with that completely. I thought the voices are weird. I thought that his not jumping to conclusions, but his deduction of what the clues meant happened very weirdly. It was like they were always right on the first try.
Well, when they were at Fenway and on the board, they both see something. It's only him and James Earl Jones. They're the only two in the whole
Right.
ballpark that can see this shit. And it would have been much more interesting to me as a viewer if they had just woken up and said, "I had this crazy dream." What? I had the same dream.
Right.
Instead of seeing this weird thing that only the two of them can see.
Well, there's also the weird rules about who can see the baseball players.
Right.
And it, like, I guess it's like if you're a believer in Costner, then then you can see it.
Or you're
Sure.
a believer in the vision that Costner has. then you
Well,
can
I guess
see
that's
it.
what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And so, obviously, the kid is a kid, and the wife is the wife, the supportive wife, so
Right.
they can see it.
sure.
And then you bring in James Earl Jones, who, by the way, is wonderful in this.
He's everything he does is perfect.
Fun
I
fact
love
with
James
Uncle
Earl
Dude,
Jones. Also-
James Earl Jones hates baseball.
Also,
This is his second baseball film.
he was in The Exorcist Part 2, and
Oh.
that may be maybe his worst outing.
Yeah, but also in 1989, he was in Coming to America, which
Did you see Conan the Barbarian 2 with James Earl Jones?
Yes, I did, and I love it. I do. You can judge me all you want, but
That's my favorite James Earl
I'll
Jones.
watch Conan the Destroyer any day of the week.
back to Hoffman, though, the character was a little erratic, but she was electric,
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah.
Obviously completely over the top in that town hall scene, but what a performance.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it was cute too when she goes out in the hallway and she's
Oh,
like,
she's
"You see
doing-
that?" And she's punching the air.
but yeah, doing the little fist.
Madigan?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cute. Yeah.
Like, I think she's all in. And I love that about her.
I think that's always what I get from Madigan, no matter what she's in.
Now, Madigan delivers. Actually, she and Ed Harris kind of make the perfect couple for me.
Yeah.
because
Yeah, I
they're
would
both
agree.
they're both just kind of. I wouldn't say there because that sounds bad. I'm not disrespecting either one of them, but they're never really in the front. They're just kind of in the background a little bit, but they both deliver.
Didn't you see Radio?
Yeah, I did. But they both always deliver. They're very consistent. And
And they've been together since like 82 or something.
right, it's crazy. That's almost like fucking Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn shit.
Yeah, I think it's longer.
The Dark Half, son
Oh,
of a bitch.
Dark Half.
Oh, was that 89?
That was
No, it's like 91.
93.
Oh, that late? Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Was Dolores Claiborne also 93? I know she wasn't in
Yeah.
that, but there, like 93 was a big year for King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believed her more as Liz in The Dark Half more than I believed Bedelia in Need
But
for
also,
Things.
the whole thing just felt off. Their relationship felt off. He didn't
Yeah.
seem. Where was he originally born and then moved to California? Where was he born? Minnesota or fucking
Yeah.
somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he moved to California to go to college. And he's like,
I thought it was like East Coast. I thought it was like
Yeah.
Jersey or something.
Was it over there?
Yeah.
So he was born on the East
Pittsburgh.
Coast.
He talked about being a dock worker or something.
Pittsburgh, and then he moves to California, goes to school, and then, I'm a farmer. But it just seemed like, okay. And then she was the farmer. She grew up on a farm or whatever. And it just didn't feel organic enough. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, she doesn't seem like the type of chick that would fight for,
Right.
let's have this farm.
Right.
It was odd. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I enjoyed it. It was fine.
The the dynamic between them is, it's a little up and down.
I didn't believe them as a couple at all.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst. He does really only talk about baseball for a lot of it.
Yep.
And that would be exhausting.
Which is why they lost their farm.
So I don't know if it was Minnesota was the Moonlight trip.
Yeah.
Because they just went to Fenway, and then he picks up old man Darth Vader,
Lancaster.
and
They talked to Lancaster.
and then they go to Minnesota.
Right.
And I think on that run, she says, we used up all of our savings on this baseball field. And it's like, you didn't have this discussion before now?
Yeah.
Well, also,
See,
with the
that's where I
savings,
was a little bit with the waffling.
They bought some boards for the stands. I guess the most money would go to the lights.
Lights.
The
And
lights out there. I don't know
yeah.
how much the lights cost, but at the same time, the rest of it were just boards for the stands.
Right.
And then you got some grass seed.
Yeah.
And some sand.
They've also not yet harvested the corn.
Right.
So there is no telling what the return on the corn is.
Right. The logic around being a farmer was kind of
Well,
faulty
in
there.
'89, and
Don't quote me a bale of corn.
thinking of our boy John Cougar, not a great year for farmers in '89. I don't think.
I think also when I watched this at 11 or 12 years old, I didn't quite understand the story
Sure.
of the Red Sox throwing the World Series and everyone getting
Black Sox.
like,
Sure.
Black Sox.
oh, what did I say?
It's the White Sox. You said Red Sox.
I said Red Sox? All right, I meant White Sox.
I get you. Yeah. 1919, right?
Right.
Yep.
And they, are all suspended or banned or whatever. And
They had
like,
the old Pete Rose.
like that's a famous story if you're a sports fan now.
Right.
But I don't know. At 11 or 12, I didn't know that story. And I don't think I knew Shoeless Joe Jackson from fucking
I sure
Next
as
Door
hell didn't.
Neighbor.
No.
And
I knew Shoeless Joe Jackson from the Bozo Show.
No shit.
Yeah, WGN, because they did a little skit about Hard Rock Coco and Joe.
Wow.
And so, they said, oh, Shoeless Joe Jackson, not Joe.
Bozo.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yep.
I've seen Hard Rock Coco and Joe 100 times, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I
And
probably did too.
I didn't know there was a
Susie
link.
Snowflake, and
Yeah.
it was just a little skit, whatever. WGN. Yeah.
Anyway, so
It is.
I get now why playing the game is so important to those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that made it that part of the story I really liked.
I did too.
And by the time that they were like, hey, I think, we've got more guys that want to play. And, all of a sudden, here come all these, ghosts of, the.
Baseball players of past.
Right.
Yeah,
and now
but
they're
you didn't find that out until he came back from Minnesota, and then all of a sudden he's got more players out there, and all the while the story was missing out on that piece of it.
Right. It could have been better on that.
Well, Shoeless Joe asks him before he goes, hey, Do you think we can
Right,
get a game
right,
going or
right.
whatever?
And also, a fun fact here is that what I read up on, I didn't know beforehand, but with Shoeless Joe, I guess he was good buddies with Ty Cobb.
Yeah,
but in
he
the
said,
movie,
we told him he could go stick it.
right? Like, yeah, we didn't want him here anyway.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny, I guess.
Fun fact with Uncle Drew, to add to your story, Shoeless Joe worked in a store. Ty Cobb walked into the store, and they didn't say anything to each other, being good friends for a long time. And Ty Cobb comes to him and says, "Joe, don't you recognize me?" He goes, "Yeah, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk to me at all." And so it was one of those heartbreaking things about poor Shoeless Joe in his later years.
So Shoeless Joe was working at the store?
Yeah.
Or he owned it?
No, he worked at the store.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So he wasn't doing great.
None of these. So, 1919, the whole reason why the Black Sox were the Black Sox is they got barely paid anything. And these owners of these teams were getting money over fists, and there was no baseball union. There was nothing to control what they were getting paid. And they go from town to town, busting and breaking. There was no security in their financial, and they play their heart out for this. So, of course, they're going to, if they can make a little bit of money on the side, they're going to make a little bit of money on the side.
Of course.
Joe, it was never proven Joe ever got the money.
Right, as far as I'm concerned, like, the history says Shoeless Joe is innocent.
Right. The
And-
rest of the 7 are guilty.
Right,
The
and-
8th man is not.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's something magical about when they all are playing the game and they're like, there's
It's crazy. For every Babe Ruth you get a Shoeless Joe Jackson. You know, like it's wild to me.
I just thought it was like I wanted to just watch the baseball game,
Same.
and I was so into it that I was like,
But
just
it's-
give me more of
But
the.
it's not about just the baseball.
Exactly. And that's why, so for me, Kevin Costner, starts going into a little bit more of his backstory about his dad on the ride to Minnesota and the ride back from Minnesota.
Right.
So he starts going to that a little bit, and I found myself just not really caring.
Tuning out.
Like,
a little
I
bit,
guess
yeah.
if that's the reason that you're building the field in the first place, it's like, oh.
So
I thought I thought
Yeah.
that the mystery about it was going to be a lot more fun. I thought this unraveling, I was going to be all in on
So
this. Like, we're just
this-
going to figure out why he's doing this, who he has to involve for that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of underwhelming.
Sure, and this movie's for an entirely different generation, right? It's for these boomers who saw themselves as the Holden Caulfields, because that's who this character was supposed to be.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's the James Earl Jones character. Although we'll make him black and we'll make him a recluse and different.
Right.
He's the man who writes, The Catcher in the Rye. And so so it was for a different generation. Catcher in the Rye means something different to me than the people of the 60s, 70s, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it didn't do much for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I see this movie as a generational gap, right? It means something different from them because it comes from a generation where dads weren't present. Dads couldn't have feelings.
Oh, yeah.
People couldn't have feelings, and so on and so forth. And so
I go to work, your mother stays home, takes care of you, I'll see you on the weekends.
So we have the Holden Caulfields who have to be the boat rocker, right?
Yeah.
So that you get some sort of emotion out of your father. And so, it's just this giant, bigger story of it all, and it's whatever. But like, I think that part of it, with going in it with that understanding, like you said, when you're younger, you watch this and you go, this is fucking not gonna hit me whatsoever.
Right.
Right.
But watching it now, I'm going, okay, different perspective.
I get the entire thing about, like, I squandered an opportunity to have a relationship with my father.
Sure.
And it's like this redemption story.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not done the best way.
Right.
But here's, a way where, like, my dad would be proud, or I'm doing something for him.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It should have been done that way. Yeah, because
Yeah.
like you said, like him squandering the opportunity, his dad sounded like kind of a prick.
Yeah, agreed.
And so maybe you didn't squander the opportunity. You both squandered it, and you were better off for it. So why do I care about your story?
Right.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
But I feel, sort of the former there, like you were talking about, like, hey, I want to make my dad proud.
Right.
That would have been a better story.
It's strange to me that James Earl Jones is the mouthpiece for all of it, right? He's the one that vocalizes and conceptualizes why all of this is happening. He's unfortunately, I don't want to use this term, but he's the magical person in this. He's the black person that gives all the reason. And unfortunately, it's a Hollywood trope that happens far too often. And he's the magical person to wrap it all up, and he says, yes, you have these problems, but everybody's going to come to this because they have problems as well.
Right, that big speech.
Right. And so...
Which I did think was a little hokey.
And it's used so often, like I think I remember after 9/11 when Rudy Giuliani steps on stage for the first Yankees game. I think beforehand they played it. People will come, Ray. They'll come from far and wide. They don't know why.
That sounds familiar.
And then Giuliani comes out there and he says, New York is open before he loses his batshit fucking crazy mind.
He was pretty good back then.
Yeah.
Celebrating.
I mean, he was America's mayor in,
Right.
2011.
You mean 01.
01, whatever. But, like, watching it now, I don't ever see this movie as a movie for me. I get it. I understand it. I get it why it's important to baseball people.
Yeah.
I get to why it's important to that generation, but it doesn't hit to me. Like...
Again, the baseball part was the most interesting
Right.
to me as a sports fan.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, you could take the baseball out of it and put anything into it, and it'd be the same thing.
Yeah, I guess. But, the fan in me says, ooh,
Right.
what if I could watch all the players that I never got to watch
Right.
play?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Like, and all I got to do is sacrifice my family and my farm and my, my sanity and all of this.
Yeah. Speaking of the baseball players, though, I just got one quote here. So one of the baseball players, they're bickering. These two baseball players are bickering, and one of them says to the other, he says, "At least I got muscles." And the other guy looks back at him and he says, "At most you got muscles." I thought that was a really great quote.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard that before.
It's a very old-timey sort of rib, and I absolutely love it.
I dig that. And it's
I
my
love
humor.
all 8 of them getting together and having that. Like you said, the baseball is the best part of the film.
But
And
again,
James Earl Jones,
out of all the guys on the field, Ray Liotta seemed the
He's
most
so-
out of place.
Yeah,
he's the
he did.
odd man out.
I guess.
Right, especially because everyone else was like this giant, like chiseled jaw, like
Right,
they look like football players. Yeah,
Players in the 20s and 30s.
Right.
right.
Not Liotta.
I loved the scene where the doc transforms from the kid into the old man.
That was cool.
Like that, the magic of that, I was all in for. I was like, oh my god, he can't go back.
Yeah.
And like
The
again,
realization from Costner, you can't go back, and then all the players giving him a handshake and him getting that whole thing.
and he got to play like it's like a redemption story for everybody. And I don't know, like the fantasy of it was fun. Like it was weird.
Okay.
And I didn't understand the rules for a lot of it.
Talking about that scene, does it weird anybody else out? Was James Earl Jones dead the entire time, or did he commit suicide by walking into the damn cornfield?
That's a great question. That I don't know the answer to.
I don't either.
I've always,
Right.
even younger, I was
That's weird.
he's like, hey, you want to come? And supposedly they're going to heaven or
Yeah,
whatever.
because he makes a big deal and he says to Costner and he's like, not you.
Right.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fucking Earl Jones calls his dad and tells him he's alive and he's okay and he's not kidnapped and not missing. And then what point from the motel with Moonlight Graham
Wow.
to Iowa
did James Earl Jones either die or does he commit suicide?
So fucking
Well-
Kevin Costner was just Weekend at Bernie's this whole shit, like he's just
So
walking around with Earl Jones' corpse.
I guess I
I'm
did.
glad we have this platform now for me to ask this question I've been wanting to answer for fucking 15 plus years.
I
That's
don't.
amazing.
I never really looked at I understood that he was dead after the cornfield,
Yeah.
but I didn't really see it as a suicide. I don't know. Like maybe he died somewhere in the store. I don't know. I still don't know.
Yeah,
But-
it's weird.
But
But he gives that speech, right? And he's across the line. Right.
right.
You're right.
And so, the magic of Moonlight Graham.
But Costner can go across the line too.
Right. And so, the fucking rules for this magic.
It's weird, right?
It's so fucking odd and so sporadic that it just, I'm watching this and I'm, this is probably my 12th time watching this movie, maybe 15th. Because, of course, I half-heartedly watched it, when I was younger. And I've seen bits and pieces as you have going
Right.
up. But maybe there's double handfuls of time where I've watched it from start to finish.
So you talk about James Earl Jones, and I figured that now's as good a time as any. I was going to bring up about watching it for the first time. I didn't understand his role. I knew that he was in the movie from the trailers, and I had thought that he was one of the old baseball players that was still living, I guess. That's how I associated him into the movie, but
I still don't really understand his role.
So...
it's weird, right? That he's this famous author or
Right.
activist.
So Costner's whole thing is he's the Grim Reaper, ferrying him off to his death, right? But he talks about
Sure.
how he regrets not being able to go to Ebbets Field and all this other stuff. And there's a deep connection between John Kinsella and his personal life and all of these things intertwined. And for some reason, he has to be the mouthpiece of wrapping up all of the story, right? He's going to tell them that the people are going to come from all over the place.
Which is true. They still do.
The place is still... The Cubs played there, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so it's really, really awesome. It's still the same site
Right.
with the house and the field, and they've set up bleachers, and the Major League Baseball actually plays a game there. They call it the Field of Dreams game.
Right.
And it's now become a thing. It's the second or third. I think this year will be the third year.
Yep.
As we record this. And the players come out of the cornfield on
So fun.
and it's a whole thing. And in fact, those games are better, in my opinion, than the movie.
fucking movie.
Than the movie was. So
But you're right. You're absolutely right. Like James Earl Jones' purpose is only to clarify the magic of it all and to make it understandable that Kevin Costner can never go into the cornfield at any point in time until it's his time.
Well, he was the reason. James Earl Jones was the reason that it kept it grounded.
Right.
Because otherwise, Costner was kind of like a fucking Looney Tune.
Right.
And it was like, okay, you're building a field and you're doing this and doing that.
But-
Earl Jones gave him purpose.
he also flip-flopped, though, between Looney Tune and Earl Jones, in my opinion. He was also sane and also not sane.
Sure.
I think until he got to the field, he didn't understand. He just understood that there was some sort of higher purpose because his whole character is this beatnik piece. Like he's this writer from that era that's supposed to have spiritual enlightenment and good things are happening, but bad things have only happened to him because of this book, right? And so he gets this message, and he's supposed to be that Carter, that tram into the afterlife.
Yeah.
And so he's the one. I'm vaguely motioning towards the gents here.
Towards the audience.
He is the
Tramming it down our throat.
the cart to move the story along essentially, but he's essentially the one to vocalize all of what Kevin Costner couldn't.
yeah. Okay.
So
couple things. One, there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where the kid is watching Harvey, the movie.
Yeah.
Which
Stewart.
What's that?
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart.
It's one of my favorites.
Which shout out to our all of our good friend Kristen.
Yeah.
Harvey is her favorite movie of all time, and
True.
I own it because of her. It's a fantastic movie.
And also, Uncle Dew is Jimmy Stewart is your favorite actor of all time.
Absolutely.
And coincidentally, the movie is about a guy who.
Well, he makes that line, right? And he's like, "Oh, this guy's hearing voices too." And he goes, "That's a crazy person, honey.
Right.
There's a problem with him."
Right, so it's a great
he's sick."
comp. Like, it's a fun inside joke if you've
Right.
seen Harvey.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, and they put that in because they wanted Jimmy Stewart and they couldn't get him. You know, his last film was American Tail, Five Goes West. Sheriff Wiley E. Burp.
It's fun.
But yeah, it's... Yeah. It's,
I thought the ending, just to kind of think again here randomly, I thought the ending with the dad really was kind of everything that I heard it would be. I really liked that whole, like, they reunited storyline.
I don't mind I like the reunited, and I'm not going to be a curmudgeon. But also, I felt like it was one of those cheap Hollywood endings.
Agreed.
That it was, hey, this is what we kind of built it up for, even though we didn't really elaborate or romanticize this relationship at all. And we're going to end on this because it's feel good, and people are going to walk out of the theater saying, what a cool movie.
this
I didn't like
that's 1989 in essence.
Well,
right?
I think that's 2023.
Well, right. Well, not really. We don't see that sort of wrap-up, saccharine sort of situation anymore. This movie wouldn't fly.
Well, no, the reason is because it's all sequels and remakes.
Well, right.
And so the sequels all have a little hook at the end to make you go, oh, yeah, that's the link. I like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So it's different, but it's the same. And then, yeah, I don't know. But so I don't know. I thought, again, when I heard if you build it, he will come, I was like, oh, they mean the dad. And then, like, that makes sense to me. But it wasn't the dad. It was Shoeless Joe, which is fine, assuming that there's a story to back it up.
Your father's hero. And
Right. Like, one begets the other. Okay, fine. I just thought that the journey to get there was, like, fucking weird. And
It was so weird, and the whole ease his pain, the second message, it pissed me off. And then, it wasn't until they got to that town hall thing where Madigan has her moment that he's like, oh, it's Arthur Mann. I'm like,
Yeah.
how did you get that?
Right,
And
exactly.
it was weird. Yeah.
again, because he just thinks it on the first try.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All
like,
of a
there's
sudden.
no struggle. There's no.
Let's get some real Columbo moments real quick here.
Right. It is. It's very
really
weird.
smart as attack.
There's a very big debate. I guess it's not a debate, but a discussion topic about one of the last lines of the movie, where Costner says to his dad, "Do you want to have a catch?" And apparently, the phrasing on this "want to have a catch" is a very East Coast thing. Like on the East Coast, they don't quote unquote play catch like we do here in the Midwest. They have a catch.
Well, it's the whole soda pop sort of situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Or in the UK, you have a sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. What does that mean?
You just sit down and chat.
Oh,
Bullshit.
well, yeah. Kibitz?
Let's
All
have
right.
a sit down.
Sure. And so there's this debate about the phrasing. And even Costner has said that that's not how he grew up saying it, so it was weird for him, but that's how it was in the script. So that's what he said.
This is
It makes
this is
sense.
a book
Yeah.
as well.
I like that.
Right. So this came from a book, and so a lot of the writing and so on and so forth transferred over.
It's been offered and criticized that somebody from Iowa would not have said that.
So he's not originally from Iowa.
right.
Well, we know that.
Right.
We know that he's not because he grew up on the East Coast. He
Right.
went to Berkeley, and then he moved to Iowa.
Right.
And so
So-
his dad, who's from the East Coast, would have a catch.
Right.
Instead of
Yeah.
play catch.
Correct. Well, my dad didn't either, so
So
All right. That's the end of this series for baseball. Well,
It is.
not that. Well, okay. Well, we gotta post conceive, right? And
Or score it. We got to
score it.
Give it a score. Me first?
I'll go.
Okay.
Well, you had never seen it before, so maybe you should go.
No. You first.
I'll go 7.
7.
I liked the sum of its parts. I liked the James Earl Jones parts. I liked the Timothy Schofield parts. I like Amy Madigan,
Lancaster.
Burt Lancaster, of course, and his acrobatic ways. Not as an old man though. I like the journey getting there. I may not like the convoluted and messy way that it goes there, but I like overall the sum of its parts. So 7.
Okay.
I've actually changed my score since we sat down here.
All right.
I went backwards.
Oh, that's
And so the parts of this movie that I really like, well, I love Costner in almost everything. Like, he's just got it. Whatever that
Postman?
it is.
He does.
And what's that?
The Postman.
I haven't seen it since it came out on VHS. So I don't know.
Waterworld.
I like Waterworld.
I don't like Waterworld.
I do like Waterworld.
Rumor has it.
I don't think I saw The Postman, believe it or not. But I would watch it tomorrow.
Good Tom Petty scenes in that one.
So
You're right.
I think Costner's great. I think that the concept of, being able to bring back people from the past to let them fulfill their dreams, like that part of it I really enjoy. It's the super convoluted and wishy-washy on the way that really kind of just brought it down for me, and as a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, I've also, I feel like that also shaped my opinion of the events of the movie. It wasn't for me at the age of 11. Yeah. It's more for me now, but still not something that I feel like I would revisit often, if ever. And despite being one of the, quote-unquote greatest baseball movies ever, which I think I disagree with, and so I
It's at least top 5.
I originally had it at a 6, and I brought it down to a 5.
Wow.
So I'm straight 5.
Okay.
And Randy, as somebody who had kind of also never seen it, you never.
Yeah, you gave it a half watch. I gave it a...
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, going into it, like I said, my preconceived was a movie about building a field and discovering something about history. I thought that it was more, actual baseball history, not personal history, which, that's fine. But again, the whole building a field thing, hearing the voices, I thought was odd. I didn't like it. If you changed it to having dreams, like it is in the fucking title, Field of Dreams, I thought that would be cool. So at the end of the day, it felt a little bit forced. It felt a little bit odd. I didn't love everything about it. I gave it a 5.
Oh, twinsies.
Yeah. So it was a 5, and Tiff thought that was blasphemy. My wife, she thought that, she was like, oh my God, this is a beloved movie, and...
Rach came into it, and she was like, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah.
And then once we got into the James Earl Jones part, then that's when she started getting teary-eyed, and the waterworks came, and she was all in towards the end of it.
Oh, his speech, you mean?
Yeah, just the whole, the afterlife bit of it.
It didn't hold up for
father,
me.
Yeah.
And I know, again, it's one of the most famous quotes, I guess. If you build it,
he will come.
He will come. That it was, I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna love this movie. This is a classic. And the more that it went on, I was like, I don't really care for this movie all that much.
Same.
So, yeah. 5.
Understandable.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm much more interested in watching the Field of Dreams game on Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
The actual game that's played in Dyersville, Iowa. Looking forward to that again because I think they do a great job with it. Am I ever going to watch this again? Maybe. I'm in a hard maybe.
It's one of those, like we had said, it's on TBS all the time. It's
Right.
on AMC all the time. And so
It's going to be put on, maybe. Like, am I going to search to watch it? Probably not.
I'm a maybe on it too.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say a hard no because I do love Costner. Madigan's great.
Right,
Ryan Jones
right.
is great. But I was thinking about it, like maybe we could revisit some of our scores if our listeners give a shit.
Yeah.
That we could revisit some of our scores maybe a year or two from now and
Sure.
say if we ever go
You were
back-
wrong about this.
Yeah, I could say, hey, I was wrong about Field of Dreams. I give
Yeah.
it a this and that.
It's funny, dude, because you said that you liked the sum of the parts. And I like the parts way more than the sum.
yeah, I'm with you. That's why we're fives.
Yeah,
And yeah, that
Yeah.
that makes sense to me.
The parts are better.
The parts are better.
sure. I can see it.
Well,
It's for a different generation, like I said.
yeah, agreed. It's
All
for
right.
people like my dad that will never play catch with me.
I don't think I've ever seen you catch a ball in my life.
I don't even really know if I know how to throw a baseball. Thanks, Dad.
So this was our series on baseball, like I had said 20 minutes prior.
Check us out on all the socials. YouTube, probably the biggest, most important one. Liking and commenting there really does help everyone involved. But we're on all of the socials, the Facebook and the Instagram and
Spotify.
Spotify. Well, right, all
Apple.
of
Where
the
you hear
places
your
where you get
podcasts.
podcasts. We're also on the X, just not as much anymore.
Fuck you, Elon.
We'll always do our best to link it to our link tree.
Right.
And
Right.
with our link tree, it just has everything on there. So if you follow us anywhere, we'll try to link it there.
Right.
And we'd love to hear about your comments, the great artwork that our own Randy Kirk has hard work put out for us. We absolutely love that.
I do think that it's been a minute since we've shouted out that rockin' theme song that Randy also wrote and recorded.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
So, yeah.
Randy
great,
is the
great,
heart and soul
Come on,
to the
guy.
table.
great
So,
job, buddy.
So we can't wait to hear from you, and we'll see you next time when we take it to the table.
Thanks, everybody.
Adios.
Bye-bye.